Since 2020, I have been having alcohol-free periods where I would go 3, 4, 5 months without drinking. And I think after the first lockdown in 2020, I realised that my drinking had become really habitual. And I'm sure I'm not the only person during 2020, March, that first lockdown, who was perhaps drinking more than what they had done previously. I wasn't working, the kids were off school, and the weather was glorious, wasn't it? If you can remember that. So my drinking had become very much habitual. A couple of drinks every day. Not excessive by some, but it was still very, very regular, more regular than what I had drank before. So I realised as we were coming out of that first initial lockdown that I wanted to perhaps curb my drinking. So in August, I then didn't drink. In the September 2020, I didn't drink until Christmas. Then it was Christmas, and it's like, okay, 2 weeks drinking, celebrating as you do over Christmas. And then I had another period where I wasn't drinking for maybe 3 months. And so this cycle was starting really. And I think having those alcohol-free periods just gave me a little bit of a break. I felt less pressure. I've never really been one for having lots of alcohol in the house anyway, so it wasn't like I felt like I was missing out on anything. And then from there, like I say, the length of time that I'd been being alcohol-free kind of extended. And it came to a point last year at Christmas. So I hadn't drank for a few months, maybe 5, 6 months. And then over the Christmas period, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, because it was Christmas. So I did have a few drinks. I was very, very ill Christmas Eve. I went to a bottomless brunch. not the best when you've been abstaining. Yeah, so it was rather messy, to say the least. Yeah. And so much so, my children laugh at me because I hadn't wrapped their Christmas presents at that point, and they had to wrap each other's Christmas presents because I was in bed by day. So alcohol clearly doesn't agree with me. So then Christmas Day, I had a few drinks. Boxing Day, I had one gin and tonic, and then I decided I kind of had that kind of epiphany, you could say, when I was asking myself, so why did I decide to have a drink at Christmas? Because it was Christmas, because people drink at Christmas, because it's Christmas. And that was the only kind of rationale that I could come up with. And because I felt so lousy Christmas Eve, I woke up fine Christmas Day. I didn't have a hangover or anything, but I was so ill on Christmas Eve. But why have I put myself through that? And then it wasn't necessarily about trying to or beating myself up because I'd had a drink. It was more so thinking, but why did I do it? What benefit did I get? I didn't get any benefit. So at that point on Boxing Day, I made a decision that I was going to give up alcohol for a length of time because I felt in that moment that my reasons for wanting to have a drink were minuscule, were really, really small compared to what I could gain when I don't have a drink. And I wanted to feel more like that, more empowered, and the decisions that I've made coming from a place that is me and more genuine rather than just doing something because everybody else does. So for me now, and that's what's changed more so with this journey that I've been on, is because now I feel that I'm the driving force behind my decision not to drink alcohol. Because I'm weighing it up, thinking how I feel now, I want more of that. I don't want to be in a position where if I had a drink, and that's my choice, I could have a drink, to be in a situation whereby if I do have a drink, it's a small, it's not even a win. It's for that moment in that instant having a drink is overshadowed by how I feel all the time. Does that make sense? So for me, this year, so I've done a couple of festivals, I've been to some parties, I've been to a wedding, um, I've had other family celebrations, and I've chosen not to drink at each of them. And when it comes to that moment when you stood at the bar, I have no problem ordering an alcohol-free drink. But when you get into a question, when you get into a conversation with people, and they're like, "Oh, so you don't drink?" No. And I think people assume because you choose not to drink alcohol, or you say you don't drink alcohol, they may think there may be a more deep-seated reason or rationality. Well, you can't. And for me, I can. I choose not to because at the moment, I feel that my journey in life and just how I wish to intentionally turn up, remaining alcohol free is very much part of that, part of my journey now. It's enabling me to be fully focused. It's enabling me to deal with some crap situations and not feel like I have to have a drink because the crap situations are still going to be there. And for a moment when you have a drink, you may have a brief kind of like exhale. The problem's still going to be there. It's still going to be there tomorrow. It's still going to be there the day after. And it's about how I can deal with those situations and not feel the need to have a drink. And I think as I keep on making those decisions to not drink, I feel more settled, more grounded. I'm able to give some of these difficult situations a bit more breadth and space within them. So then I can contemplate what my decisions would be, or contemplate my answers, and contemplate how I'm going to turn up, rather than being muddled by alcohol. Now I'm one who loves having a dance. I love going out socializing. But what I've realized over this year is that I can do all of that and not have a drink and still have a good time. And then I can drive myself to Greece. I can drive myself back. I can wake up without that. Like I said, what did I do? I said too much. I've overshared. And it's not about trying to remain God. It's just trying to honor myself and how I want to turn up and be in a position where I can share what I want to share, when I want to share it, rather than being in that kind of bubble of alcohol. And what I found a couple of weeks ago, I was walking through my town on a Saturday evening, only early evening, about 7 or 8. And obviously the bars are, bustling a bit with it being a Saturday. I think it was quite sunny weather as well, to be fair. And I could hear people laughing and joking. And then I've been in some situations where people drink, don't get me wrong. But to go out on a Saturday night, surrounded by people that are drinking, doesn't quite have an appeal for me. So much so that I would perhaps choose to avoid those situations. If I was going out somewhere, and if it was a meal, if it was a party, if then I'd be fine with that. But to actually go out and not drink, I don't know. I've not been in that situation on a social night out. If you can see what I'm saying, if you can understand what I'm saying. And for me, that pull, that law of going out on a Saturday night doesn't appeal. Now that could just be because my viewpoint has changed. I'm not the same person as what I was 2 years ago. Well, beyond that, obviously beyond lockdown, who would want to go out on a Saturday night? I mean, I love getting dressed up. I love going out dancing, but I realise now I can do all of that without actually having a drink. So it's trying to find now social situations, social environments, um, nights out, evenings that fit me now, rather than me go along on someone else's narrative or the perceived norm. It's now trying to find something for me that I can still have those kind of social interactions, dancing, getting dressed up without actually going out surrounded by people who drink. So for me personally, I suppose I've come to this point in my life where I'm approaching. I am middle aged. I'm approaching menopause. I'm getting older, and I think part of that is having that compassion for this next phase of my journey. It's about me having that understanding that my body is changing, my tolerances are changing within my body, as well as my um, my tolerance of people and situations is changing. I'm becoming more vocal about what I do want and what I don't want and what I'm prepared to put up with and what I'm not. So I'm becoming more vocal. So in that, I've changed. So it's about me then finding situations that fit me now rather than me trying to force myself in a situation where I feel uncomfortable. And I'm not about that either. And I'm not going to put myself in spaces where I feel vulnerable, where I feel uncomfortable, where I don't feel that I fit. So part of that reason is why I want to look more into alcohol-free events and not necessarily sober events as such, because my experience of perhaps some events is that there may be people there I don't necessarily gel with or feel safe. So it's thinking about how I can get something that I enjoy going to and celebrating and feeling at ease within those spaces. So when I go back to the festivals that I've gone to this year, okay, so I was alcohol free at these festivals. And I found quite interestingly at one of them that I went to that it was very much drink alcohol orientated. Now there may have been people there that were alcohol free as well. But when you're in an environment where there's many, many thousand people and you're listening to comedians and different and it felt like there was just lots of references to alcohol, lots of references to getting drunk, lots of references about um yeah, and that didn't fit with me either. So I think it's about having those spaces where you can do all of that and not drink. Now I understand that some people, alcohol gives them a little bit, it makes them feel a little bit more relaxed, a little more confident, um, so they can put themselves in those spaces and loosen up and let go. So I understand that and I appreciate that, and I see that that's their kind of journey, and that's how they wish to let their hair down. And I would like to find spaces where I could do that in a way that I can still have all of the fun of the fair, just minus the hangover. Oh yeah, an alcohol-free cocktail. Just some of them are just not nice. They're just like overpriced pop. Um, and I think when I look back with regards to my own relationship with alcohol and how that's been over the years, I know I've never I've never really felt comfortable drinking. I've done it because everybody else does. Or, I grew up, I say my mum ran a pub for 5 years. So from the age of 17 to almost 22. I lived in a pub for 3 of those years. Uh, yeah, the pub trade is tough. It is. I would I would personally recommend it for children. Um, so when you see, obviously, you see the flip side of that. The bar was like our lounge. We were sitting there to have we'd eat in the bar. We would never eat really upstairs. It would all be downstairs. And even from a young age, when I think about my journey through alcohol, and I've written about this in one of my blogs, I think I was first introduced to drinking cider when I was perhaps 5 or 6. And from that, from like say for 5 or 6 when I first had that, maybe 7 or 8, it was young anyway. And then going into my teenage years where we would all come together and put money in from MD 2020, and then going out drinking. It was, I mean, I feel quite queasy thinking about it, like Diamond White and Special Red K. Um, moving on to the 20s. I mean, I never really had a drink of choice. I was just stumbling along in whatever anyone would suggest, half a lager and lime, um, Black Russian, Tia Maria, to go through all these different drinks. I mean, I found out in my early 20s that wine wasn't for me, so I was never a wine drinker. Um, and some of the states I used to get into, it was just, I had no idea what my tolerances was, and I was just drinking myself into oblivion, very much so, drinking cheap vodka. And so I've got like experience of it, and it's like some of those dire situations that I got myself into through drinking, you know, the walk of shame. Dear me. I'm sure we've all been there. And this isn't about beating myself up and shaming my past. I'm not about that. And those that have followed me for a while will realize I am not about that. I'm about celebrating all that you are, all that you've been, and all that you will be. But I feel that within society, there's that kind of expectation, almost like a coming of age where we drink ourselves silly. And for what? Where you've gone out, vomited. It's just very messy. So I'm at a point now, okay, so in my late 40s, and I'm choosing now for myself how I wish to intentionally turn up for me, intentionally turn up for my children, and be a lighthouse in some respects because they can see how I'm living my life now. They can see that I'm being very present or trying to be. I'm not saying I'm an ideal parent. I'm not saying I'm far from perfect, but I'm turning up. They can see that I'm turning up. And that's got me thinking as well. That it's quite interesting when I think of it, when I have been to some social events, and like I say, I'll drink alcohol free lagers, gins, I'll drink alcohol alternatives, alcohol free alternatives, I will drink. And I was out somewhere and I think it had an alcohol free gin and tonic. It was served in a glass. It looked like a regular gin and tonic, but it was obviously alcohol free. And someone had made a comment, I thought you weren't drinking. And it kind of like made me like, well, it's alcohol free. Almost as if I had to justify the fact that I wasn't drinking because I had a glass that looked like it was alcohol, while that person was stood with an alcoholic beverage. And even if I decided to drink tomorrow, that's my decision. I'm not here to say I'm never going to drink again, but I feel remaining alcohol free for me is something that I'm going to continue to do for the foreseeable. And I suppose that could be similar to the fact with regards to my veganism. If I chose to eat meat again, that's my decision, even though I've been vegan for 8 years. That's my choice to remain meat free. It's my choice to remain alcohol free. So somebody else's commentary on what my choice is their business. It's not mine. Same as what they choose to put in their body is their business. It's not mine. Although I may, if you ask me anything about veganism, I'll gladly talk to you about it, and I'll gladly talk to you about my journey through my, what's resulted now in my alcohol-free phase in life, you could say. Um, so, I mean, what are your thoughts about going alcohol-free, abstaining? Have you done any periods where you have abstained. I know obviously at the beginning of the year you have your dry January. I think there's something else coming up in October, possibly. How have you found it? What is your journey like with regards to alcohol? Have you had um, experience of perhaps alcoholism in your family? Now, that's not meant to kind of set any negative thoughts associated with that. It's not about that. It's just thinking about, okay, with your journey in life, have you experienced any extremes in alcohol use? And I know in my previous relationships, alcohol has been a factor. And also, as I was growing up, alcohol use um, was a factor as well. And going into my teenage years, it did become a factor that impacted me in my life. Um, so perhaps it's something that you may have experienced. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are with regards to it, and just think, like I say, with regards to, I wrote a blog post about my experience with alcohol and how I came about this kind of thought process going into January and where we're at now, and that celebrating those kind of months. And I have been celebrating each of those months more so now, as in my sober anniversary. And I say sober, I mean, that perhaps sounds like I may have had an issue with alcohol. And it's not so much even that. And even if I did, so what? Um, it's more a case of recognizing now as I go into this year and how I went into this year thinking about alcohol and how I wanted to intentionally do things differently. That's why I'm more about celebrating it now, because it feels a little different rather than thinking, okay, I'm not drinking for now. And then, okay, I'll have a drink at Christmas. I'll have a drink for my birthday. I'll have a drink at Mother's Day. When these celebrations were coming up, oh, I'll have a drink. Whereas now I'm thinking, I can move through these celebrations. I can go to weddings, hen parties, festivals, and not feel like I want to have a drink and turn up without the drink. And like I say, at the time, for the time being for me now, that's where I'm at.